Hi, everybody. Dr. Keith here. Hope you're doing well. We'll get started here in about. Hi, everybody. Dr. Keith here. Hope you're all doing well. We'll get started here in about a minute. If you don't mind, type in where you're from. I always like to see what part of the country or what part of the world you're from. Obviously, it's not mandatory. This is going to be recorded, and probably tomorrow early morning it'll be sent out to everybody that's registered. Okay. Hopefully you can see my PowerPoint slides right now and you can hear me okay. Type in a Y if you can, or an N if you can't. And those of you that know me, I'm not going to talk too much on slides, probably 10 minutes max, and then we'll look at some live charts. Okay, I just always prefer that to kind of demonstrate my points, but I'm excited about today's discussion, and we'll get started here in just a minute. Jason, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. All right. It looks like it's 5 o'clock Eastern, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know it, in the evenings. I appreciate y'all hanging in here in this evening. So I really haven't done. I've done presentations on divergence before, and I'm going to kind of show you how RSI and divergence play a role in your trading today. Okay. And one of the things I can tell you, with 15 years I've been trading, divergence is a really good tool for you to know when a stock is probably headed, or I'm going to focus on stocks today, folks, but same with futures or Forex. Okay. And divergence is a really good, with RSI and divergence, it's a really good indication of tops and bottoms. Okay. And the reason that can be important is if you're looking to get into something, no matter what time frame, okay, it's always good if you can find divergence, you have a better shot of making some money. And it used to be more difficult for me because, in all honesty, before all this great technology, I'd have to, as I show you how you find what RSI is and how you find divergence, it really takes some time to study those charts if you don't have it automated. Okay. So again, those of you that don't know me, I know there's a lot of new folks here. My name is Dr. Keith Wade. I've got my PhD in finance. I've been trading the markets for 15 years or so. And what I like to do is demonstrate certain strategies and how I do my trading and so forth. So at the end, I'll give you in the PowerPoint as well a link to my Facebook page, YouTube. And again, every other Wednesday, I do a live webinar that again is free, and it's recorded if you can't make it. Okay, so take value of some of these resources. So before we get started, go ahead and read that real quickly. Basically, what it's saying, though, folks, is that you should never put money into the market you can't afford to lose. Okay, you need to almost assume you're going to lose the money, because if you're doing it, putting money in the market so you can hopefully pay rent or whatever the case is, the psychology is different, and most traders fail. So I always like to put it out there that you should never be trading with money you can't afford to lose. Obviously, it's your discretion. Okay. So today's agenda, I suspect, will be about 30 minutes, and then I'll open it up to questions. I try not to be too long on these webinars. I can demonstrate concepts, my points, how I trade it. I've gone an hour before, and it's a lot, right? It's a lot of information. And so I'll try to keep this by 5:30, folks. Okay. But we're going to talk about RSI. We're going to talk about divergence and really how to kind of use these together to pick tops and bottoms. And I'm going to go over in live charts, some examples, and I have a special offer if you're interested in some of the automated parts. Okay. If you're not, no worries at all. And in fact, at least you'll know then how to look for divergence. Okay. So depending on how long you've been trading, most of you that have done any sort of research for an oscillator, right, a momentum oscillator, you'll hear things like RSI, which is the relative strength index. You'll hear of MACD, right, things of that nature. And today we're going to focus on traditional RSI. Now, those of you that have been following me for years know that when I trigger something, I use something a little bit different, but my divergence indicator is based off of RSI. It's super powerful. Okay, so that's why on my charts today, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to show you a really fantastic technique that you should be excited to take home tonight. Okay, again, so the RSI was developed by Wells Wilder. And again, it basically measures the speed and change of price movements, okay? And so again, this has been around for a long time, and a lot of folks will use it. You know, it's free on all the platforms pretty much, and it's pretty effective, okay? It's pretty effective. I use it in conjunction with what I call finding my divergence, okay? It was developed, the RSI, in 1978, okay? So I was 7 years old, didn't even know what that meant at that point. And the RSI provides technical traders with signals about bullish and bearish price momentum. Remember, RSI is about price momentum, okay? And assets usually considered overbought when the RSI is above 70 and oversold when it's below 30. Again, these are traditional settings, okay? And when I'm looking for divergence, which I am going to explain soon, okay, I keep them at 70 and 30, although you can always adjust it to 80 and 20, 90, 10, 60, 40. I've always found it really useful at the normal given numbers at 70% and 30%, okay? So it's hard for me to talk about RSI without talking about divergence, okay? And again, for some experienced traders, you already know what divergence is. For some of you new folks in trading or just haven't really used this concept, it'll be something new. But divergence is when price of an asset is moving in the opposite direction of, in this case, the RSI, okay? It warns that the current price trend may be weakening. So whether you're in an uptrend or a downtrend, you can spot these weakenings, okay? And in some cases can lead to price changing direction. So the way I like to explain it is down at the bottom there. If you get a new high in price without a new high in the RSI, and these aren't all-time highs, they can be. I'm talking about based on my formula of X amount of hours back, okay? So if you get a new high in price, but the RSI isn't a new recent high, then you have divergence in this case, okay? Or if you have a new low in price without a new low in RSI, same thing, okay? You have divergence. Again, not many PowerPoints I'm going to do today, but I want to explain this a little bit. And then again, with the recording, you can always go back and listen, okay? So again, let's go to some live charts now. Okay. So what you should be seeing here, again, if you can't see my Thinkorswim charts, let me know. What I'm showing you today and the product that I'm going to offer you at the end is using Thinkorswim, okay? But the good news is if you don't use Thinkorswim and not interested in using Thinkorswim, you're still going to learn how to look for divergence, okay? So this is a stock, and it doesn't really matter what the stock is, but this is DRE, okay? I just did some searches for some previous divergence here, okay? And this is the daily chart. So I'm going to go over divergence for the daily first, okay? But yes, we can do smaller time frames with divergence, okay? And so what happens is, do you see right here? In fact, I'm going to blow this up just for this example, okay? Right here, we had a new recent high in price, okay? But this is the RSI line, okay? The relative strength line, okay? Remember, this is our oscillator that's showing momentum. So you're like, well, how do you know this wasn't as high as it was here back? Well, you see this white dotted line? If you go back to the start of it, you see here the RSI was higher than it is here. Okay, so that you have a new high in price, right? You all agree that this price right here is higher than this price right here, right? But when you look at the oscillator of RSI, you see here the RSI is higher here than what it is here. Okay, folks, that's divergence. Sometimes that's hard to pick up on your own, right? I mean, you got to really take a look at your charts and try to figure that out. this indicator that I have right here demonstrates, like, so what's happening is it's painting this dotted line because there's potential divergence. But then once this bar meets the criteria, okay, once that next bar opens, it's there forever. And so what you look for, in my opinion, okay, once you have that divergence, then you can look to go in the opposite direction, because typically what happens when you have divergence, okay, it's gonna have a retracement. It doesn't mean it's gonna go from $50 to $2, right? The stock in this case. But if you were in the trade long, you probably want to look to get out. Or if you're looking to short, now you're getting close to a short play, okay? And there's a lot of different techniques that I use once I found divergence. I'm not going to go into a lot of those techniques tonight, because again, my main goal is to show you one concept. And here is using RSI with price to show divergence, okay? And again, you can see here, the RSI here is lower than here, yet price here is lower than here. So that's how you have that divergence. If you were to draw a line from here to here, it's pointing down. The line here is pointing up, right? Okay, so that's a main concept I really want to make sure you're clear on today. Are there any questions on that? If there are, feel free to type them in, okay? So that's divergence. Let me show you some more. I mean, I'm going to do a few daily divergences, okay, on the daily chart. This is Facebook, okay? So again, the line started painting, which is kind of handy, because then when you're looking at your charts, you know, you're like, man, you know, we might be getting some divergence here. We might be getting some divergence here. But right here, okay, you had a new high in price. The RSI here is lower than it was here. So now you're getting a divergence, okay? And again, the moves back down are not necessarily going to be huge moves in the opposite direction, okay? One easy way to determine if you're in an uptrend or a downtrend, I have Bollinger Bands on here, okay? The red line is 2.5 standard deviations. The green line is 2.5 standard deviations, okay? That's a standard free indicator in Thinkorswim. I just changed the settings to 2.5. But when it's pointing up, it's an uptrend, okay? So if you're fighting uptrends, divergence usually is going to give you a retracement. But again, that's where you can take profits when you get that divergence, okay? Or if you're looking for a short move, that's the time to take it. My favorites are going to be the bullish divergence, where it's actually the lines down here for a move to the long side. And I'll show you some of those too, okay? All right, let's take a look at something like Apple. So you see here where, again, price hit a new high. In this case, it was an all-time high with the split, okay? But you see from here, you see how this RSI was way up here above the 70, but back where it diverged, you see how that RSI is down? So you have divergence, okay? So you expect in the near future a retracement, okay? Very, very powerful, folks. The hardest part's always been locating these, in my opinion, okay? Locating divergence, because unless you're only trading 1 or 2 stocks or 5 stocks and you look at them every day and you draw your lines to see if there's divergence, it can take a lot of time and energy, all right? All right, I'm gonna give you a couple more. So one of the questions was green and red lines. Again, these are just standard Bollinger Bands, but I changed the input to 2.5 standard deviations, okay? And I'm not gonna go into the Bollinger Band strategy right now, just because I really want to keep this to RSI and divergence. Okay, but I put Bollinger Bands on here so that you can see if they're pointing up, you're in an uptrend. If they're pointing down, like down here, you're in a downtrend. Okay, great question. Please explain. Let's see. Does divergence mean change in trend always? No. So, I mean, like anything, you can definitely get false signals. Okay, but and it's not always a change in trend, which is a great question. Like here, you see how we had divergence on Apple? I don't necessarily call this as a change in trend. I see it as a retracement to the bottom Bollinger Band with the overall bias to the long side, right? You might say, well, why is that? Because when you look from left to right on your charts, if it's pointing up, if you draw a line and it's up, that's an uptrend. Okay, very simple to do uptrends or downtrends. Okay, so in this case, you had divergence. Okay, and this was a retracement you could have made money on if you were using divergence as your indicator. Okay, great questions. All right, let me give you a couple more of these examples. Here's divergence where, again, you had a new high in price. Okay, again, these don't mean all-time highs all the time, folks. These are just based on my formula. A new recent high in price. Okay, but you see how the RSI, this is a little bit harder to see. That's why the indicator is handy. This is lower than this, though. So by definition, that's divergence. Okay, that's divergence. These are just some recent ones. I just did a quick look. Cleveland Cliffs. Okay, here's one that was diverging for a while, right here. Then this is a more recent one, okay? And then you have this a little bit moved down. So again, you either take, if you're in the long play on this, you could take profits at divergence, or you can look to go and pick your top here and get them moved down, right? You would have made money on this, right? You go in from, let's say, 26 to, to 23 or 22, you made some money. You're not looking for huge retracements because you're in an uptrend, right? So as you can probably think out loud, right? There's a lot of different strategies. The key is to know you have divergence, right? I'll do another seminar soon on specific strategies I use with divergence using RSI, okay? But today I wanted, again, keep it simple, keep it simple. All right, so let me show you the other kind of divergence. Anybody drink beer? None of you have time for that, probably. All right, so the yellow, okay, now you've got the opposite, okay? You've got a new low in price here, but you see how the RSI isn't as low as it was back here? So now you have a bullish divergence where you're expecting it to go higher. Okay, let me blow that up for you. When I was learning divergence years and years ago, okay, I would have loved to see examples like this. That's why I'm hoping that this makes sense to everybody, no matter if you're a new trader or been trading for a while. So again, okay, see the RSI here versus right here is not as low. So you can draw the line up and the line down, there's your divergence, okay? So especially if you're bullish the markets, boy, you get some divergence, it's probably going higher, right? Then that can be extremely useful for you, okay? CAH, Cardinal Health, same thing. You see this divergence? So the RSI was way down here, okay? And then when you had the divergence, the new low, see how the RSI is higher than it was here. So there's your divergence. And again, you're getting retracements. Doesn't mean it's going to keep going up to new highs, but it did its job. So if you were short, you got out, you saved yourself, larger profits. Or if you got in here, you scalped it, right? You got a few bucks and you got out, okay? Yeah, so the way divergence works is it's got to be a new recent, not an all-time, a new recent low or a new recent high, with the RSI not making a new recent low or recent high CISA. Does that make sense? Yeah, well, yeah, so I brought the Bollinger Bands on here because what I do like to use with Bollinger Bands is when it stretches down to the green or to the red, a lot of times you get moves back to the mean, okay? So when you get divergence in conjunction with it close to the band, I definitely like it long in this case, okay? Also, your stop can be pretty tight because the risk is going to be less than the overall reward, okay? All right, so that's off the daily, and that's off of bullish and bearish divergence, okay? Now let me change this right here to 4 hours, because again, divergence works on any time frame, okay? So I just went to the 4-hour chart, and let me see, let me look at my notes at some recent ones I noticed. Tesla, okay? Now, here's the risk, in my opinion. So let me just point this out. Tesla's been in a monster uptrend forever, right? So I'm not looking to go short here on this 4-hour with divergence, even though it worked out beautifully, okay? Because I'm waiting for it to turn back around. But if I was in this trade, you might look at exiting with divergence. You got it? Like, see here, this is kind of a false signal, right? We had divergence, but price then kept on going. And that's because you're in a very, very strong uptrend, right? One of the basics of trading, and it still means the same to me than it did 15 years ago. The trend is your friend. So if you're long Tesla on a 4-hour chart and you get divergence, that's probably your exit point, folks. Okay. So if you were long here, you probably exited here. Yeah, and then it kept going, but that's trading. Okay. That's trading. All right, let me bring up some more examples. Again, this is the 4-hour chart. So here's a good example on Deere, John Deere, right? So again, you had a new high. See how this RSI is lower than this. It's harder to see, but it is. Let me just blow that up for you. This is higher than this, yet this price is lower than that high. So there's your divergence. Nice 4-hour trigger short on Deere, okay? But if you're long on Deere, right, then that's your exit point. So again, you can use it to either exit a trade or enter a trade, right? Pretty cool. Okay. Let's see here. Got some more in the 4-hour, then we'll go over to smaller time frames. DHT Holdings. Again, so you had a new high without a new high in the RSI. See how this RSI is higher than that? That's divergence. There's your trade. Okay. Here's another beautiful thing about when you are looking to pick tops, though. Okay. Let's say you win 7 out of 10 of these. The beautiful thing here is you can just literally get in the next bar, put your stop a little bit above the recent high. If it knocks you out, you lose a little bit of money, right? But if you're right, your risk reward ratio is going to be at least 3 to 1 usually, sometimes higher, right? So again, I'm not going to do advanced stuff in this class today, but it's not about winning and losing here. Like, you could take every divergence if you wanted to, as long as the risk is low. It doesn't matter if you lose, right? In this case, it would have been a beautiful trade. But if it would have kept going and got you out, let's say at $7.30 was your stop, you lose a little, but you're going to win. When you win, you're going to win a lot more. Okay. So hopefully that comes clear for you. All right. One more on the 4-hour, because I like to show both sides of the divergence, right? So here's an example where you've had it for a while. And what's happening is this is showing up as potential divergence up here as a label. You can only see it when it's actually going on, though, okay? Then once it meets that criteria, let me kind of hone in here. So right here, okay, see how this right here is lower than this. There's your divergence, okay? And then you have this nice move up on that 4-hour chart, okay? So it goes in both directions. Now let me go to a 5-minute chart just to show you a couple on smaller time frames for you day traders, okay? Well, here is one I didn't plan on talking about, but it's the same stock. But here is a divergence where you hit a new high. The RSI was higher back here. There's your divergence, and that was a nice little day trade, okay? Never day traded Discovery, though. So let's bring up the Qs. Let's see what we got. All right, so some recent divergence on the Qs. Let me blow that up right here. So again, you had a new high in price on that 5-minute chart right here, but you didn't have a new high in RSI when you had a new high in price. So there's your divergence back to the bottom band, okay? Back to the bottom band. Let's see if Tesla has any recent divergence on the 5-minute. All right, so you had bullish divergence here, kind of more of a false signal, I would say, right? And then you had it back here again where it made you some money on that 5 minute. Okay. But again, the reason it diverged back here, the RSI, you can see, okay, very simple, right? Very simple strategy. The difficulty's always been finding these. Okay. Okay. So let me show you a couple of things here. What I'm going to do, Thinkorswim has a great capability of scanning. Okay, so I've created a custom scan with these stocks, and you can scan anything you want in Thinkorswim. It doesn't have to be just stocks, right? I'm going to hit scan, and I already did this because you never know after hours. These are Divergence as of right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is save this as a watch list. These are daily, by the way. See the D? You can change it to 30-minute, 1 hour, weekly, monthly, whatever you want here. Okay, these are daily for now. Okay. And then I'm going to click on here. I'm going to save this as a watch list, and I'm going to call it Divergence 11.9. Okay. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab it under my personals. Well, it'll be, hopefully I can find it. People that know me say I always have issues with this. All right. Divergence 11.9. I found it. That's amazing. All right. So now when I go to the charts, okay, let me go to the daily chart. These are all stocks that have divergence painting. See that? See that? See that? So then you can decide based on that if that's what you're looking for. A little divergence here. But you can run this as many times as you want, depending on the time frame. Daily, you do it, once a day or in the evening. You're doing a smaller time frame, okay? But how cool is that, right? Whatever you want to trade, you're going to grab divergence, and then you can keep an eye on it on your watch list, right? Okay, so you see this had divergence back here, made a move down. Now we're getting it again. Okay, we're getting it again. Okay. So that, the indicator, the divergence scan, and then the other thing I have, this right here, folks, I know it's hard to see, is a watch list script. And if you have divergence on the daily, any of your stocks you have up, it'll paint a yes, a Y. That way, if you're looking at your watch list and say, oh, there's a Y there that has divergence, okay? It has divergence. So what you would get with this package would be the scan, the divergence indicator, and the script that would also show you when there's divergence, okay? All right, let me go back to the PowerPoint. So one of the things that, let me put the offer in here and I'll talk about it. I'm going to put it in the chat for now, but you also get it in the email tomorrow. Okay. And what you get for 548, normally it's about 700 bucks. Okay. You're going to get the indicator, as I mentioned, the scan and the script. Okay. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do another live webinar just for those that purchase, where I'll do a Q&A session and go over things for you. Okay. It's super easy to set up. It's a 5-minute process, I guess what we said. But again, if you don't purchase this, not a big deal. The real reason I was holding this today was to get you back to basics. And if you've never used Divergence, super powerful for taking profits or to getting in trades by risk reward ratios. Okay. Super powerful. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that this is you can email me. Okay, this is my cell phone, folks. You can text me if you have questions. If I don't answer right away, I'm not around. I'm out with my horses or something, but I will get back to you. Okay, here's the Facebook, and this will all be in the email send out tomorrow. Okay, or you can also text this number, but I actually recommending my cell phone is faster. Okay. Are there any questions before we conclude today? I told you it'd be about 30 minutes, and I mean it, but I do have time for questions. So are there any additional questions? Let me know. Hopefully it's made it clear for you if you were a little confused on on Divergence. Brent, it looks like you have your hand up. If you have a question, type it in. No problem at all. But again, I hope you all enjoyed the presentation on Divergence. You'll get the recording. And if you're interested in purchasing, you'll see it in the chat. I'll also send out the offer. Again, it'll probably be tomorrow in the morning when you get that. But reach out if you have any questions. Okay, that's what I'm here for. And I appreciate you taking time with me today. All right, well, I don't see any questions, folks. So that was fantastic. It was 30 minutes to the dot. Have a great rest of the week and have a great holiday season coming up if I don't talk to you. Take care, everybody. Bye now.